Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 151 of the I Rock Knits podcast. And I am in my hometown of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, at the new yarn store that has been in business since
November of 22.
Yeah.
So 19 months, 20 months?
Yeah, it's so exciting. There was a yarn shop here for many years, and I had taught there in an older home, and that yarn shop went away, and then Jane decided to open this one. And so this is my friend Jane Taylor, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm really glad to be here.
You could come down.
I know. So it was Father's Day, and then my parents' anniversary is this week on the 25th. And so I said to Ross, we really should get to Sioux Falls more often. Mm-hmm. You know, Mom's 85, Dad's 90. And so we should try to just get down there and see them more often. And so he's like, okay, yeah, we could go down for their anniversary. And I said, ding, ding, ding. If I'm going, I'm doing this new segment called Chatting with Friends. And let me see if Jane is willing to come on the podcast.
Yeah.
So we met a number of years ago. When I wrote my first knitting pattern book, Jane was a former librarian. And you know my brother Jeff.
I do.
And Jeff watches.
Hi, Jeff.
And he likes the book recommendations, and he used to love the recipes. And I haven't done recipes for a long time because the podcasts are getting so long. But he will watch, and so he is a city planner here in town.
Right,
so
still is, yeah.
Yep, you knew that he knew of him, and then.
Well, I think he contacted my boss and said, "Hey, my sister wrote a book." And I was in charge of some adult programming, so she told me, and then we started.
And you were a knitter.
Yes, and that's how it landed in my lap. Yes, because I was already a knitter.
Right, yeah.
So right
and I would say you have been a knitter with a capital K for many years.
Well, actually, I didn't start till 2006, so not even 20 years. But I've been a serious knitter.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that once I found it,
went all in.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So I came down and did a book talk, and it was really funny because I feel like the weather was bad. Was it winter? It was maybe cold or something.
Cold.
And the whole back row was my family.
It's okay.
They all came and sat in the back row to support me, which was lovely. But it was kind of funny because it is my hometown, but this is a big city. I don't think a lot of people know. Because I think people think of South Dakota as being a rural state. I don't think they realize that Sioux Falls is a big city.
It's a metropolitan area.
Right,
really.
right. So there are 4 high schools in town.
Right, 4 high schools, and then, multiple library branches, couple malls.
Yes.
It's grown.
And it's surrounded by interstates that run north and south and east and west. So major thoroughfares of traffic go past Sioux Falls. So it is definitely what you would think of as a much bigger town than people from around America. And then I have people internationally that watch the podcast who would just not even have any idea where South Dakota was, except it might be in the middle of something, right? So yeah, it is. But I did grow up here. At the time, there were only the 2 high schools. I mean, O'Gorman, Washington, Lincoln. So I did go to Lincoln. Did you grow up in Sioux Falls?
I grew up in Sioux City, so just down the road.
Okay.
90 miles south. So I was familiar. We had cousins here. You went to school with one of my cousins, actually.
Oh, okay.
Remember Lisa?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that
we did.
You were in her wedding even, I think. And we were started talking about it.
And she was in mine. She fainted in my wedding, actually. And I was just telling Kylie that story because my daughter Kylie's getting married in December. We went to look at flowers on Monday, and for some reason, and Kylie's having one attendant stand up for her college roommate and best friend, and I said, well, something about it, and then Kylie's like, isn't she the one that went down? And I'm like, yes. So it was a more evening wedding. It was very hot, May 31st, super hot. Yes, very hot, like 90 degrees. Ross golfed, got so sunburned, and it was a 6:30 wedding in an unair conditioned church, and the bridesmaids had little candles in the middle of their flower arrangements, little votives. And all of a sudden I hear this rocking of this candle inside this votive, and I'm like, uh-oh. And it's on video, and you see me go slow motion, right? And she just went down. But the candle was important because you do not want to start the church on fire during your wedding, right? So yes, Lisa, we went to high school and college together because she went to Mankato. Yep. Yeah. So
anyway. There's other connections too. You know, I think South Dakota Sioux Falls is a big city, but South Dakota seems like such a small state in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where
definitely.
We find so many connections that we know this person or that person, and
yeah, definitely. For sure. It definitely feels like a smaller community of people when you come home and know that. And my dad and mom have been here
forever,
all these years. So
know a lot of people.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
and I've only been here since 1990, but you know, I had a very public job, so I ended up knowing
a lot of people. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And your career as a librarian ended. You retired and then decided to open the yarn store. And had that been a plan for quite a while?
So yes, when I learned to knit and kind of went all in, I'm like going, you know, I get to retire when I'm 55. What do I want to do? I mean, that's young.
Yes.
And my husband, we had this early retirement thing and we got this extra stipend, and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm going to take that extra stipend and I'm going to go open a yarn store. And it just became what it is. All the skills that I had from managing a branch library in town and managing people and managing product and merchandising and all that stuff that went into the library just kind of easily transferred into this.
And the hours. Because that you were
retail.
Expected to be open, and so you already had that kind of as a natural
I knew that
background.
And working with the public.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, I had that background for many, 31 years, so that part didn't bother me. But I knew when I opened that I could set my own hours, so I'm like, oh, I don't have to be open Sunday. Oh, I don't have to be open Monday. I can take these days off. And so it worked out for the best. And my former boss retired not too long after, so when I need time off, she just works for me. Oh. So it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, and I think that is a dream of a lot of people. Not a goal, but a dream of a lot of people. Like, oh, in my retirement, I'm going to sit and knit in my own yarn store.
You don't get to sit and knit,
right? Right?
Some days you do.
That is the thought that, oh my goodness. And I think most people who frequent yarn stores know the reality of the fact that the yarn store owner is never sitting and knitting, right? Like, you probably do less knitting now that you own the shop than you did before?
I do more knitting certain times of the day. Other times I'm either ordering or rearranging or planning classes or there's always something, cleaning. I mean, you've got to do all of that. Bookkeeping. Social media. Takes up time.
I know. My husband says to me, it just makes me so sad that you work so hard and you make no money. Because there is always something to be done, right?
Oh yeah.
Like I'm right now I'm doing the hustle for fall classes. I'm sending out tons of emails and I'm asking people, do you want to set something up before I get too busy? And then I'm still doing my social media, and all my designs that are coming live for fall have to be written now. And so you're always working ahead, a season ahead of where you want to have people. And so I totally get it. But there is always something that can be done.
Oh yeah.
I'm always like, today he was like, are you ready to go? I'm like, no, I have to send one more email. And he's like, oh, okay,
Well, and I'm not knitting for myself much anymore. It feels like I'm knitting for the shop.
For sure, samples.
So there was a couple this last spring, I'm like, oh, I have to knit this sample. and I shouldn't feel that way about knitting. I love knitting. And I have people who do crochet samples for me, so I don't have to do those. And I do have a couple other people that will do samples, but I feel like, if I'm working with something, I want to work with it so I know what it's like, so I can tell people what it's like.
Exactly what I was going to say. You don't want to sell yarn that you haven't knit with much, right? Like you want to kind of know the properties of the yarn and have felt it and said, oh, I made this and, this is how it turned out and this is how it worked. Yeah, for sure.
You need to know your product. And if you don't use your product, how can you know what it's going to do?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel. That's kind of like the reading thing. I always read with the library too, and you want to know, you want to be able to recommend something. And that's how I feel comfortable recommending something.
Yeah, definitely. So how long before you retired did you really have that niggling?
Oh, jeez.
Like, did you kind of have a
at
plan
least,
for a while?
yes, I
or
did.
just
I
was
was
it
like
getting
8
close
years.
and you were like, oh, okay.
No. It was not too long after I learned to knit and really went all in. So I went in 2006, so probably even 2012.
Okay.
When the kids were in grade school, I'm thinking, okay, what I'm going to do once they're gone and once I can retire. And I love fiber, like the textile and the color. And so it just, yeah, I kind of knew pretty early on after I started knitting that I wanted to do that. Yeah. And even long before I retired. Because I told people I was going to do it. I told people at the library, hey, by the way, when I retire, I'm going to open this yarn shop.
I did that for many years.
And then I had to do it, though.
Exactly, with being a knitwear designer. I did the same thing. I said it out loud. I said, I had written a couple patterns, but I was saying, I'm going to be a knitwear designer. I'm going to write knitting patterns. This is really what I want to do. I want to invest time in this industry. And I talked about it for a long time. So when did you find the space?
Oh, like 3 months before I opened.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to find a space and be in love with it and knowing that wasn't going to be ready.
Right.
So I waited until we did all of my sabbatical year that I took and knew that, I'd start looking about July, August.
Yep.
And then I found this place on the first day.
Oh, okay.
I did. I was just like, this first day we looked and I walked in and said, yeah. This is perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect location, perfect size of space. Because I had done some recon up in the cities and went to a bunch of yarn shops, talked to owners.
Yep.
That's the other thing. I didn't know like square foot because I can't visualize that.
No, yeah.
So I went to several yarn shops, talked to owners, asked them square footage, looked at what I liked about their shop, made notes, what I didn't like. And so I kind of went in knowing the square footage that I wanted, the price point that I wanted to be at, just the physical location.
Yeah.
I had an idea in my head.
Yeah. So we are right off a main thoroughfare, 41st Street through Sioux Falls, but also the interstate runs right out there. A mile maybe to the exit, maybe at all. And a huge parking lot with many other things around and flat entry. Yeah.
Easy access. Knowing my clientele was probably going to be a little bit older, I knew I needed to have parking that was no steps into the building.
Yeah, for sure. So this piece here is just amazing when you come into this. So this previously was a
jewelry store.
Yeah.
At one point.
And it's very modern but light. So we are looking at a bank of windows in front of us, and then when you walk in, the space feels very different than any yarn store I've been in, because a lot of them are either strip mall modern or old brick building, brick walls, whatever, and have been made to accommodate for good light. This had you walk in and it's open and light, and the lights are all, there are so many lights, and it's awesome.
Yeah. And I have two windows. I have a south facing window and a west facing window. So I always have natural sunlight through here, or natural light coming in this shop. So that was one of my goals, was to come in, feel like, walk in, take a breath, and just like take it all in. Yeah. Without feeling overwhelmed. Yeah. And that's what I wanted.
Because you do not have yarn to the ceiling. No. You don't have samples in aisles that make it feel claustrophobic, or nothing's too close together. There's lots of space. It's just lovely. Yeah. It's a really lovely space.
Thank you.
When you decided to open and you got your space, how was it doing the inventory startup? Kind of like, do you just contact a couple of people and then you just say, this is what I can buy? Like this is an interesting experience. Right. I haven't talked to someone who opened a yarn store from literally scratch since the pandemic, right? Who didn't get yarn from somewhere else, or buy it from a yarn store owner, or like that, taking on a business right after the pandemic. I find that fascinating.
It was from scratch. Yeah. I started with yarns that I liked. So I knew I wanted Cascade 220. I knew I wanted Let Lopi. So I contacted those companies first. Yeah. I knew I wanted brown sheep. So, because I like certain lines of theirs.
Yep.
So those were the lines that I wanted to start with. And then I had a friend who was a hand dyer, and I told her at Zombie Knitpocalypse that, you know, when I open my shop, would you be willing to sell me yarn? And so she sent me yarn. And then, you know, other people mentioned other yarn companies that I contact, like Mono, still Uruguay. And so some of those were just like, this is my aesthetic. This is what I want to have in the shop. So
that is a beautiful segue into your trip.
Oh yeah.
Because so you need to go over and follow Jane on Instagram, but
Yes.
Jane took an amazing trip.
Yeah.
So tell us just a bit about that.
So one of my Mono Still Uruguay is a Hands of Uruguay. So it's a cooperative out of Uruguay, beautiful country, little small country between Argentina and Brazil. If you don't know where it's at, it's a little grape down there, and they have every year. So if you want to sign up, go to their website, and they have a newsletter. You can go on this 10-day trip and visit where they actually hand dye their yarns. You get to visit the wool warehouse.
Okay.
And where they process some of their wool, and it was amazing. Food was good, people were wonderful. The cooperative ladies that work in these places, and they're rural places.
Yeah.
So for me, being from South Dakota, this really hit home to have jobs for these people, these women, to raise their families up in a rural location, because that doesn't happen in rural places. So that part was wonderful. And then the landscape was, you know, like home. It was ranch land.
Yeah.
Ranch land with Angus beef and and horses. And,
So how many people went?
There was 26 in the tour,
Okay.
so it was a nice size. People from all over the country. Met people, somebody from Canada, people from East West Coast, California, Minnesota.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part was fun.
Yeah.
To meet other, and another yarn shop owner that is in Philadelphia. So there was two yarn shop owners, her and me. So Wild Hand is the name of her shop. So
Oh, good. I'm going to Philadelphia at the end of July to teach at
So-
Yarn Fest.
Oh, okay.
So I'll have to look up the yarn store.
Look up the yarn store.
For sure. I just booked my flight this morning and reaching out to some teachers to see if we can share a ride.
Yeah.
But let's talk just a minute about what we're wearing.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about your favorite knits of all time.
All right.
So I'm wearing my Pippin Poncho. I've worn this a number of times, I think, on the podcast. It is easy to throw on over something, and this is Knit Circus yarn, and I used a highly speckled yarn, and it's the same stitch pattern for the whole thing. You make this little piece, and then it's just a rectangle. So super easy to put together, and I have two. I have one in yellow and this one. Wear it quite a bit, but as soon as I walked in, I knew Jane had on one of my designs,
Yes,
and
I
that's
do.
just who she is. I was like, how nice is that, right?
So I have the Knitting at the Library cowl, the first one. I did it in Suburban Stitcher yarn that I picked up at Zombie one year. So I really like the colorways. It's really a fun knit.
And
I've
so
made
soft. Her yarn is lovely, and
I've made this at least 3 times, and then I've done the part 2 at least 2 times. So
so that was
a classic.
originally it's a sampler with different stitch patterns that you can either do once or repeat, and so there's a different textured. So these are all textured stitch patterns. The only reason I wrote it is because the knitters at the library knit hats, and then they wanted to do beyond beginning knitting class, and I'm like, well, I can write up a little textured knit in the round. They can try some easy stitches.
This sells
And
very
then-
well in the shop too, because newer knitters like doing it.
The next step, like what can I do? Because you could do the same textured stitch in a different color for all. You wouldn't have to do all of them, and I tried to keep them real simple. But then when they got done with that, then they wanted lace. So then I did Knitting at the Library part 2, and I did a sampler with 4 little lace sections. So it was just like a little stepping stone. And honestly,
skill
still
builder. Mm-hmm.
one of my most popular patterns, because after I designed it, I found out how many knitters knit at the libraries. That's where knitting groups meet. And naming it Knitting at the Library caused people who knit at the library to be like, we should knit that as a group. And I had no idea that would also help in its advertising and its publicity. At the time, I was just writing it up for those ladies. And so it can be done in any weight of yarn, worsted to fingering. It is written for both of those weights, so it you know,
and you can do it in a DK or sport. You
it'll turn out a little bigger. Yeah. But
fun.
it is, and I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it is kind of a nice one to just throw around your neck and fit, you know, fingering weight is lightweight and kind of nice. So it looks really cute. I do like the colors that you used.
So, yeah, it was fun.
Okay, so she is going to share with us some of her favorite knits of all time, like we do on this podcast.
I remember every name.
And if we don't, I'll look them up and I'll put it down below. I can edit. You know, we can look them up on our phones as we sit here if we can't find them. So it won't be a problem.
I remember most of them.
I'm sure you do, because there are probably a lot of them.
I wear them.
Things that people ask you about in the shop. So then you kind of have an encyclopedia of
them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with one of my all-time favorites. And it was a knit that I've always wanted to do, which was an all-over cabled cardigan.
Yep.
And this is my absolute, I love this cardigan.
Dream of many a knitter to say, someday I'm going to knit this thing. Yep.
So this is the Fiadh by Olive Knits. And it is bottom up.
Oh, okay.
With pockets. You put those in later, so they've got little pockets. Bottom up all the way to, so it's seamless. No seams.
Okay.
Here,
and you knit your sleeves.
And then you do a shoulder saddle there. But this was, I color-coded the charts, and it was just so fun. And it was one of her
and there's a
workshops.
lot going on in it.
And there's so much going on.
Many different.
Keeps you busy.
Yeah.
And then I just love the back.
Yeah.
Can you see that on the?
Yeah, and we can hold it up really close
so people can
really. So you used a tweedy yarn. That's what kind of gives it also that visual appeal, I think, because to me, tweed just always seems cozy. Like a tweed yarn. I just am finishing a striped sweater out of the tweed, and I think you're going to swear the daylights out of this, Cori. Tweed always... tweed
is a weakness of mine.
But it does have an added kind of visual effect to... what could otherwise be a flat yarn, right? Not that this wouldn't have been beautiful, but the tweed adds something to it for sure.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's an Aran weight tweed. So, yeah, I love this sweater.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It has to be cold though.
Some really pretty bobbles down the front too that aren't on the back.
No, they're not on the back because you're not going to sit.
You got lots of stuff going on to kind of, look at this braid too.
Yeah,
there's
braid,
a lot of
and then there's seed stitch in there and little wavy cables on the back, and it's just there's two little,
nice.
It was fabulous.
Really,
I'm very proud of it.
And you should be. No, you should be. And I just the same thing happened with my last podcast with Suzanne. She said the same thing. I always wanted to knit this sweater. I never knew if I would step there. It was the one by Hohi. And she's like, it took me almost a year. Like it was a long process for me to kind of get through it. And so she said, she said it is one of the ones that I'm most proud of because it was something I really wanted to do, and I knew it would be a bit of a challenge, but I wanted to take that on.
Yeah.
And I think that that's awesome that you both showed something that you really had that passion for. That's cool to me.
And so this is another Marie Greene Olive Knits, but this one's a little bit simple cable. This was one of my first cable sweaters. So you have the cables, but you have rest. So it's not quite as intense as the other one. I used a 3 Irish Girls superwash. Guinness, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's my
lovely.
Don't look at that. But nobody looks inside yours. And it's a top down raglan.
But that's really cool how this goes right into a V-neck. That's really a neat
and even the bottom,
feature.
That detail on the bottom where the cable just goes right into your ribbing.
Yep.
So it's, that attention to detail on it that really makes it
Which honestly is not difficult to do, except when you try to do it for a ton of sizes. The sizes can so throw you on that. Like you think, because I've done this, I'm going to design this and I'm going to do that on a hat. And then as soon as I go from the child to the adult extra large, like you have to adjust your cable for how that makes that happen. And so it's amazing when a designer does it. It's far more amazing than one would think.
And this one had the cable down the side too, so it kept that sleeves interesting. You didn't feel like you were on Sleeve Island because you had something to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. Oh, and all the way across the back is plain. So that's that's really really nice.
And it's great for a hand dyed because you get a cable, but it's not so busy. You can't have a super busy yarn, but you can have a hand dyed that's gonna pop.
Party in the front on this one.
Party in the front.
Right.
You know, I'm looking at all my sweaters, and most of these I've knit in the last 5 years. I was doing some looking, and I'm like going, holy cow.
Well, I think that's pretty common because because I think we wear our newer things, and they're new. They feel new and fresh. Not that we don't wear our old stuff, but I do think that some of my favorites are the things that I became a big girl knitter. Like, I know my body now. I know my likes. I know my dislikes. And I look back at some of the things I knit in the past, and I wouldn't knit those anymore. I made them maybe for a trend or with yarn I had, but I wasn't really sure about. And I don't make those choices anymore.
Right.
We make
different choices. Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm similar in that way.
Right.
Like,
so that one was the Brookings. I forgot to say the name of that one.
Were you drawn to that because of Brookings, South Dakota?
No, because I didn't go to school at SDSU.
No. Yeah, but it's right up the road.
I went to school in Vermilion.
Okay. Well, then that makes sense. My brother went to SDSU, which is in Brookings, South Dakota State University, and it's in Brookings. So there are 2 major institutions in South Dakota for learning. There are a lot, but the one is an hour north of Sioux Falls, and one of is an hour south of Sioux Falls. And often when you go to college from Sioux Falls, there is a definite rivalry, right, between USD, University of South Dakota, and SDSU. My dad is a huge Jackrabbit. Well, you know, he went there. My brother went there, right? And so the SDSU is big. And so when you said Brookings, it's the first thing that popped into my mind, because I didn't go there either, but that makes sense.
Yeah. I just like the design. I like the classic designs.
It's very pretty.
So this one's called Sigríður. It is out of the art of circular yolks. It is a color work, multi-color work. I've done other color work where I have only done like 2 colors.
I love this. Oh my gosh, this is going in my queue.
It's a lovely pattern.
When I get home.
And I did a color, when I printed it, the color work, I colored it in.
Yes.
So I knew the colors were going to play right with each other.
Yes.
Because it was blues and stuff in the book, in the pattern, and I didn't want those colors, so I went this route. And has little pockets.
They're really cute.
It's super cute. A little crop sweater. I wear a little white button down under it all the time. It's one of my favorite go-tos, and it's so light.
What weight is it?
It's sport.
I was gonna say it didn't feel like fingering, but I didn't really look. I was just I was too intent on that yoke.
And this is Swan's Island.
In multiple colors at home because I got to go there.
Yeah, right. Did you do sport?
Summer. I'm not sure what I bought, but
I bet you could make it work.
I might have bought. I know it's not worsted. It might be fingering, but I bet it could still make it work.
Yeah, you could make it work.
And it's like purpley raspberry, and then oh gosh darn, I love that yarn. I love their yarn. It reminds me of just a good woolly wool. Yeah,
it is, and it's sturdy. And this even has a little detail. Well, what's really cool about it, when I ordered it, it said from sheep in South Dakota. So Rambouillet, South Dakota, and then they milled it over in Maine, and then I got it back to South Dakota. So I thought
that is actually happening to me in this moment. I got yarn support from Brooklyn Tweed. The yarn came. And the yarn came from South Dakota.
Yeah.
And
isn't that awesome?
It's their arbor. And I was like, oh. And it won't matter to anybody that I designed this hat with this yarn. Right. But to me, it like, that's my home state. Yes. That's really neat. So thanks for telling. How did you hear about Swan's Island?
I do Marie Greene's knit camp. Yeah. And she was talking about different yarns, and she likes scratchy woolly wool, which is my favorite too. And she mentioned them, and they were having a sale, and I'm like, I'm gonna go on and see. Yes. And then I found the sweater pattern, and I'm like, oh,
because we bought a blanket when we were there. We bought one of their woven blankets, and that she let us look in the back at the mill and stuff. It was really neat. How long have you been doing Marie Greene's knit camp?
Since the very beginning.
Wow.
July of 19, I think she started.
Yeah. She has grown.
I discovered
that
her
thing into like she is an institution now, right? Like with the have you are you knitting the new? I assume the 4-day Cowl.
Yeah,
coming up.
It's over there for the shop.
Right. No, I mean I would assume you would have to because I know you're
I'm almost done.
because I know you had hers from last year. I mean I remember that, and then I think people who really follow her. My friend Renee, who has been on the podcast, came to knitting on Thursday with her yarn choices for that the new vest. I think she calls it a shell, but
I don't know what she calls it.
But it's sleeveless.
Yes, it's sleeveless.
It's sleeveless.
Lots of sleeveless out there right now. Oh my gosh, sleeveless is huge.
I have a design coming for this fall that's going to be really cute. I hope if I get the other things that are in front of it. Yeah. I think it's great because you don't have to knit as much.
I discovered her because I was looking for a cardigan pattern, a simple cardigan with just a little bit of something. So I found her Stillwater and I made it.
I do know that one.
And then all of a sudden at that exact time, she was starting to advertise this knit camp coming up. And I thought, I don't do a lot of other things. And I really liked her aesthetic because it's kind of classic.
It is.
And that's me.
Yep.
Kind of classic aesthetic. And I just went with it. Hi.
What time it is? I'm sorry.
Do you need anything?
So tell me what sweater camp or summer camp Marie Greene's camp is about. Because if we bring it up, then people will ask me, and I haven't done it, so I don't expect you to be like
completely
pimping out her, right? Like, but what made you think to do it, and what is it? Because it's still going on. It's still ongoing.
Yeah, it's an annual subscription basically. And I started in 19 when it started. So because I liked her aesthetic, so I found her sweater, and she was starting to promote it. And so I signed up, and I've signed up every year. So you get a pattern a month with it. So each month you get a free pattern.
All year.
All year.
Wow.
You get the 4-day knit along. You get online Zooms. You get, she does a retreat, like an online retreat, which started because of COVID. In September, you get a free day of other people coming in and doing online Zoom classes. Yeah, classes.
Okay.
So you get all of that with your annual membership.
Okay, so it's like a 1-year commitment.
Yeah, right.
But you get to choose what you want. But you get
and then you get all her workshops and all of her little tips and tricks and all those videos and stuff too. So and there's a community. So she has her own app, and there's a online community that kind of like Facebook only for them.
Yeah, I was going to say it started. Didn't she start on Facebook, or doesn't she have?
She did have it Facebook to start with, but then she kind of dropped that because she could do this in a more private way, which a lot of people want. People don't always want to be on Facebook.
Right. Yeah.
So she went to this other private. Private way to do it.
We got interrupted, but I thought I should ask just so that people don't ask me and I go, well, I think you just pay some money, you get some stuff. Like that's kind of what I know. I get her emails and I know that she's doing stuff, but I don't have all the details on that. So okay, we can move on to your next.
So the next one I just made a couple months ago, and it took me a week. And it's called the Low Key.
You're speaking our language.
The Low Key Vest by Elizabeth Smith. Somebody on our trip had it.
I love her designs. I think she has a really interesting aesthetic that is different than other people's. And not that it's not classic, but it's not traditionally classic.
No.
She does a lot of really interesting design.
Yeah. So somebody on the trip had this on. And I asked her, okay, well, that's what happens when you go on a trip and you meet people. I'm like, what are you wearing? And she said, well, it's the low-key vest. And you can see that it's got these pearl bumps through it. It's a bottom up. I love how she did the split hem here because you knit. It's not like open. You actually knit together 2 or 3 stitches. So
do you want to go check?
Nah, it's okay.
Okay.
I locked the door. It's off.
Okay. Yeah, 6:30.
So yeah. It's
and you used Originally Lovely yarn.
yes.
And she lives right by me.
Oh, she does.
Yes, and I have not met her in person, but I want to have her on the podcast.
Okay.
Because she started her own yarn brand, and does design work. And I'm kind of originally a big crocheter, does knit too, but a lot of crochet stuff. So do you carry this?
I have the Lana in stock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just call Jane and tell her how many skeins you want
Yep.
to make this up, because when you said I made it in just no time, that's a lovely thing to. You could also hold some yarns double to get that Aran weight in from your stash, because I do hear people say
You could use two sports.
You own Aran, right? Like, and then you say make it like if you don't have an income that allows you to purchase yarn for everything you want to knit, and you have some stash, make your own skeins, right? Like figure out how to hold it.
Well, and Aran's hard to come by. It's not extremely popular. So we're starting to see more of it. As a shop owner, I'm starting to see more companies start to carry it.
Well, it's a faster knit for people.
But it's not bulky either.
Right.
It's not that bulky.
Yes.
But it's faster than worsted. So yeah, I was extremely happy with this one. So yeah.
Super cute.
Recommend the pattern, recommend the yarn.
Yeah.
So this is the Vivi, this is the Marie Greene one.
Good.
It was one of our workshops. But this is an all over cable. But then look at the sides. It has a star pattern.
Yep. Can you
There. See that star pattern in there? So it had the combination of texture with the cable. And then on the back, there's a cable that goes down the back on each side. And if this is a very flattering fit, this is a wide sweater. It's a very wide sweater,
and Jane is not wide. I mean, you're not. I'm just saying, people know that I'm a bigger gal. I mean, I have bigger body parts, but you don't have that. So talk about the fact that this is wide. And that it can drape and be.
It drapes when you put it on, and this I learned from Hohi on the trip. When you have something wide like that, what happens is it drapes on the side and gives you like a U shape.
Yep.
So then it
makes you look narrower.
Looks narrower. It doesn't make you look wide because you have that drape on the
That's
sides.
her whole boxy,
the boxy
sweater kind of component.
Yeah,
but
we talked
it's
about
the drop shoulder. It's almost poncho-like. In a sweater form, right? Like it's form. That everything kind of hangs down.
Everything hangs down. Great with jeans. I throw it on with, whatever. So that's the Vivi. I made it in Harrisville. What's their real crunchy yarn? I can't remember. Harrisville Designs. I can't remember the name of it.
I
have it on there.
Yeah.
It's there. And then I'm going to show my...
Oh, because it's glorious. It's so pretty. So this is my pretty boxes. And
you can see I made 3/4 sleeve.
Yep.
And I did some yarn management because I didn't want to open another skein of something. And this was Mad Tosh DK. I splurged
But I do love the rib on this sweater in the colors. Like it was one of my favorite things about designing it, and I know a lot of people just did solid instead of using the colors, but I do really love the colors. So I'm gonna do a second one because we're going to Rhinebeck with a group of friends, and the Madison Knitters Guild chose this sweater as they're going by bus. So there are 50 of them, and they're knitting this sweater to bring to wear. They didn't have to knit it to get on the bus, but I had a ton of sales because I offered them a coupon code, and I cannot wait to see all the colors, right? All the different combinations, because just the testers doing the combinations. And so Matt is going with me, and he's casting one on, and he'll be the first male that's made one. And I didn't think at the time that I should be thinking about fitting for a man's body in that way, and I named it Pretty Boxes. So we're calling his Handsome Boxes. And he's knit enough sweaters that
he can modify wherever he needs to.
And he said, I don't think it'll be a problem. I've made yoke sweaters. They're not my favorite fitting, but he really wants to. And I'm so honored that he would take it on himself, right, to be like, I'll knit that for you and wear it when we go to Rhinebeck.
He can narrow this. He can narrow this down so you don't have all that extra there. He can just cut this out.
Yeah, and he's only a 42 bust, right?
Yeah,
like he's just chest for, you know, Cori. But yeah, so we'll see how he decides to do his. But I loved your color choice in this.
Thank
like
you.
from the minute I saw it in the skeins when I came into the shop, I just think it just sings, and I'm giddy that I'm gonna go take a picture with all these women. I mean,
Yeah,
I've never
that's gonna
had
be
that
fun.
I've
on
never
the
had
hill
that
over
many
there.
people,
Yay.
knit like all at once. Like I might occasionally
few.
one in a while, maybe, but this is gonna be like, whoo, big time. I'm just feeling really,
Yeah.
So, thank you for showing
Oh,
that.
you're welcome. It was a lovely knit, and I do
Oh, it
wear
was a disaster test knit, but it's a lovely sweater.
Okay.
And I talked about it at length. The struggle that my new tech editor and I had, and the how that got messed up so badly. We still double check our versions now, and we put our initials on the version at the bottom and the date. Like, we're so over cautious now because of what that mess that happened.
Yeah.
And
It's okay. And then one of my other favorite, and then I do have a few accessories. It's not all sweaters.
It can be sweaters if they're your favorite.
I did a
We
Fern and
have
Feather.
not
I've
seen
made
one
this.
of these yet.
Really?
That you have shown, and that's what I love about having the chatting with friends. Other than the pretty boxes, because I did it, and we haven't had a lot of Marie Greene, so this is lovely because people are getting a whole different, inspiration point.
So Fern and Feather, it's a classic Jen Steingass.
Yep.
I've knit this 3 times.
Oh, really?
I did one of the like the spin cycle-y type ones for the yoke one on one of them.
Okay.
That's at home. And then this one is made with the Sun Valley fibers.
Oh,
Duh.
okay. I was like,
Sorry.
Madison, the yarn store. I went the
Sun Valley
wrong way.
fibers.
Sun Valley.
Yeah, Sun Valley.
You know what? And I can feel it because her worsted is heavy.
It is.
She has a heavy work. It's a heavy weight. It weighs a lot. Her sweaters and worsted weigh a lot, and they're not that much thicker in like the yardage per grams because I've looked, but they still are. Like, I have a couple by her.
Right.
I do want to knit this because I think it's just very graphic yet soft. Like it's I'm such a bold aesthetic, and this is really graphic, yet this part makes it so soft.
And I did do the waist shaping on it.
Okay.
It calls for waist shaping. You don't have to do waist shaping, but I did on this one.
I think if you have a waist, go for it.
It's a pretty simple repeat once you get going on
Well,
your
no
color.
long floats,
No long
probably.
floats. No,
like you
no,
don't have to.
you don't have to catch.
You don't have to trap because stuff's pretty close together.
Yeah, you don't have to catch. So so that's one of my other favorites.
That's really nice.
I love the colors.
I do.
How the colors
I
came
love
out.
the colors. Yep.
Yeah. Probably some other people that you haven't. Do you have Skeindeer knits?
No.
She does.
I know her very well. I know of her. I have one of her. What is
mittens.
it? Nope. Her new.
Oh, she's got. Is it the library?
Yes.
The librarian vest.
Yes.
No, yeah, that's her newest, I think, isn't it?
Is it librarian?
Or the library vest or something like that. Yeah.
It's a vest that I put in my queue.
Yeah. Yep. So this is
along with 300 other.
So I have made. I don't even want to know how many of her designs. I think I've made the first 3 sets of mitten patterns that the clubs that she did. I made the first 2 sets, all of them, all of the designs, and then this last one I've done like 3 or 4 of them. So I really like how her patterns are written and the charts. This one is the Speedy Spunni, so this one's a bulky weight, and I did it in the Lopey bulky, but it's really nice. I washed it, so you can tell it's not quite as scratchy, but But I've done hers in like the Rama yarn and then the Lopey yarn. And
are you a mitten knitter lover?
I loved
Me too. And what do people not see? Like, people
they get mad at
rave
me.
about socks. Rave, rave, rave. That's all you hear all day long. And you go, I love a good mitten. And they go,
they look at you funny.
A mitten, and you're like, your heel, I will take my thumb over your heel any day. But like, I love knitting a good mitten. I feel like I found you as a soulmate in the mitten love.
Yes, I love mittens. And plain mittens, I'll do plain mittens. I'll do colorwork mittens. I'll do cabled mittens.
I love lined mittens, knitting a lining to tuck up inside. really love
I just finished
making.
a pair of cable mittens that was, the guild here got some yarn from the sheep from the zoo. So I made those, so that's going back on their zoo auction. So I made these cable mittens for that.
How cool is that?
Because I thought, that's a
neat.
perfect little thing to put on an auction to.
Okay, I'm gonna put that up there, but that's
one of her designs.
Yep.
Lovely designs. Just love her designs.
Yeah.
Highly recommend her patterns. Really, really good. I've taught classes with this.
Okay.
For color work.
Yeah.
This is how I teach color work.
Oh,
is with
okay.
a mitten.
Mitten.
Mm-hmm.
On magic loop or double points?
Whatever they prefer.
Oh, okay.
I do these magic. No, I do 2 circs now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I've converted myself.
That's what the people in my little mitten class, my little Advent mitten class, are using is 2 circs. I use double points because I'm old, and that's how I learned.
Well, they're comfortable with it.
But and I'm so much faster. Like I have tried the other 2 ways. I have taught the other way.
Yep.
I'm so much faster on my double points.
So this designer is Jenny Noto. She's wanded something on Ravelry, but this is the Tentacula
Yeah, you have
hat.
to hold that close because it is really cool.
So when you look at how she pulled up her yarns,
So right here,
yeah, right through there
pulled these
on both
up
sides,
and pulled these
Yeah.
up.
she has a whole series of hats based on Harry Potter.
Okay.
So if you haven't heard of her, go look up her, and they're lovely. She has good instructions too.
Okay.
Her picture instructions are really well done on her designs. So we did actually a knit along the pom pom. This is a pom pom can come out, so it's just tied in.
Yep,
That's why you see that. But I just think they're the cutest. So you can see how cute they are. Aren't they cute?
Really cute.
And they're great with
It's
a
really
hand dyed
cute.
yarn.
It's really cute. I love that.
So like a Malabrigo
Yeah.
works really well. This was Kato.
Like a Malabrigo chunky?
Chunky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a Kato chunky.
Yeah.
Kato
I have
from Minnesota.
I'm honestly,
Shelley's.
I'm sitting here. I have 2 Kato chunkies at home in my wine rack because it doesn't hold wine anymore. It holds chunky yarn. It sits on the floor in my dining room, and I almost got rid of it because it was always empty. And I was like, I'm gonna put some yarn in there and use it.
But
So
yeah,
that
so
would work
yeah,
great
you can
for
see
that.
how fun that is, and with the color.
And we said Kato Yarn Company, like you would all
I'll
know what that is. But it's Mankato, where I went to college, is the name of the town. It's in the southern Minnesota, and she is out of that area. So she calls her, and kind of people in that area called it Kato. Like there's
You go to
the
Kato, and it's
Kato
Kato
Bowl
Mountain.
and the
It's
Kato Mountain, right? Like but it's Mankato is the name of the
Yeah.
town, and so that's what the yarn is coming from.
And this is one of her other patterns. This is the Veela Beanie. It's another one you can kind of see. I made it with monos.
Here, I'll hold it so you can
There
point
you
out.
go. So this has like a design that kind of goes up the side and tweaks, and then these little flower poofs in here. You can't really see it with this yarn. It's probably not the best yarn to do it in, but it's really fun.
I think like you can totally
isn't that
see
fun?
it. Like you can see stuff's going on, and you can see this.
Yeah,
And I love this colorway.
yeah.
It's a little. I don't know. When I looked at it, I thought red. On there, it
looks more orange. It's red in person.
But I love that color.
Yeah.
Only because people are going to be like, of course, Cori likes this orange. No, it really
not
is
orange.
more red. It's really more red. I don't have to have everything orange in my life, but
This is the Granger Toque. So you can see you can see
lots
on
of
that
texture. Yes.
And I like texture.
Me too.
Keeps me interested.
I like texture better than lace if I have a choice.
Yeah.
I do like doing texture.
This one was done in Malabrigo worsted, so
Okay.
yeah. So I had some of that. Needs a pom pom. This pattern comes in fingering to bulky.
Oh, okay.
So you buy one pattern and she has
all the sizes.
all the sizes for all the different. So whatever you have in your stash,
You can make work.
you can make work.
That's lovely.
Which I really like about her too. She gives you other options within the pattern for it.
That's great.
Yeah, she's a good designer too.
Excellent.
So yeah, another design you might not have known about.
No, for sure. That's why I love doing this. So the change for me in doing the podcast this way has made it feel fresh again, because now I'm like looking at stuff that I've seen this on Ravelry, but I don't think unless you see it in person, you realize how that is. Like, that's really interesting that those stitches are pulled up like that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I said this would take about an hour, maybe.
Well, we had an interruption too.
And we did. 59:56 people. No, actually, who I really told was my parents and my husband. I said it shouldn't take us more than an hour. Like, and I don't know that we can start right on time because if she has a customer, right? So we did pretty well.
Get through
all that. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're
welcome.
welcome.
I love coming home because I know I can stop in here and get that feeling. I own way too much yarn and I don't knit anymore because I'm designing, and now I'm starting to get more and more yarn support, so I'm not even using my own yarn in the projects that I own. So this closet is just like looking at me. Well, I want to thank Jane so much. Prairie Road Yarn Store in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. On your trips from the east to the west or the west to the east on I-229, 229,
on I-90.
Any of those will get you here. Like, I'm trying to think, is there anything else that gets you here? But yeah, it's definitely, it could be your destination yarn store, and you could reach out ahead of time to find out if she has classes going on or trunk shows. You have several trunk shows.
So Mode Knits here. And then I have a trunk show with monos for the Serena, and then I have Yarn Truck Adventure coming in August. So yeah, lots of things going on. And then I'm finally getting a ribbon cutting with the chamber. I finally organized that.
Oh, good. When is it?
It's middle of July.
Okay.
Yeah, July 19th. I'll post it on my...
So if you are a Midwest person, or if you're just traveling, like I know tons of people go to the Black Hills. That's a destination trip.
I was surprised last summer how many people were coming through. I have one thing that was really good for me was the national park hats. I have 2 national park hat kits from Nancy Bates for the 2 parks in South Dakota with local yarn in them. So that
there
was
you go,
just
right?
Like,
because I did have a gal get in touch, and she said, we're going to go across, and I said, stop at Elle's Oasis. It is you got to stop at Elle's Oasis on the river, go see the Freedom Monument, right? But like they have pie, and they went twice. They went on their way out and their way back, and I was like, oh gosh, there are things that you can definitely. There's destinations here in South Dakota for people to see, and I think
they're beautiful.
Most people know about the Black Hills. And how far of a drive would it be from Sioux Falls to Black Hills? It's 5 hours, about 5 hours. 5. So it's on the opposite side of the state, and it's flat and
straight across.
There's nothing there. Really good knitting time.
It's good knitting time, but it's also beautiful country when you get to the river and you come over the hill to the river.
Yes.
And the river, by the way, is the Missouri.
Right, because we talk about it as if it's the river, but it's not the Mississippi.
And it splits the state in half. So it's East River and West River. So if you hear people talking about South Dakota and they say East River or West River, then that's why. But so there's a little fun fact about South Dakota. And it really isn't a lot to look at, but for me, it's so open,
beautiful,
and so
in a way, because people from other parts of the country, like especially like even Wisconsin, where it's so hilly,
right,
so bluffs, right, that they would never you would never seen it. You wouldn't see how flat it could be.
Yeah, well, and dry
until you get to the river, where then it goes
to the river.
Whoa.
Yeah, no, I love living here. It's a great town to live in. It's an easy town to live in.
Yes,
it's easy town to get around in, raise kids in. It's just a lot of positives, and we have Broadway shows and stuff like that come. I mean, and it's 5 minutes from my house. I mean,
my mom and dad have seen a lot of theater too.
Yeah, in
this town. So
well,
thank you so much.
Welcome.
I really appreciate you letting me come in at Friday night at 6:00 and record a podcast so that I can have more content for all of you. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We're back. We just walked away, and I was like, oh, show it. We have to show it.
So I forgot about this one. I've knit this one twice. This is my light. It's called Snows. It's a Let Lopi pattern, so it's out of a Lopi book. You can get it on Ravelry, but you can see the color work there. It was one of my dream sweaters to knit a Lopi sweater. You know, a lot of people want to knit a Lopi sweater.
No, for sure. And I want to go to Iceland.
Yeah.
And I want to buy yarn in the grocery store.
Yep. And so it has this beautiful color work.
I mean, does snows mean snow?
I think
because this looks like snow. Like it just feels like a snow sweater.
Yeah.
It's just, it's glorious. And so you used Let Lopi, but that's how the snows has the umlaut over it.
Yeah.
You can find snooze, whatever they would say. Yeah, but
But it's easy on Ravelry, and I'll have the link. I have it on my Ravelry page, so there'll be a link to it. All of these, I have, almost all of them, I have a Ravelry page for. Yep. So we'll get that to
we had
Cori
to add that at the end.
Yeah, we'll have to add this one at the end. But this was a really cool knit, one of my favorites.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's really pretty.
Yeah. So another little thing.
Hi, Patreon friends. Thanks for being here. It is Sunday afternoon. Happy Pride. I put on my rainbow t-shirt and my rainbow shoes this morning. Off to church we went. And then we got home, and I have been trying to sit down to podcast for several hours. Just have a lot on my plate right now. Lots of things going on with designing and trying to keep track of things. I have so much to tell you guys. So let's just jump right into it. Thanks to everyone who came to Patreon Knit Night. It was super fun. We had it this week. And I want to just say hi to Susan and Brandi and Ruth Anne and Renee and Barbara and Christine and Rosie and Janice and Kris. You guys can always join late. I know I got some messages right before we started. Where's the Zoom link? How do I get on? What if I have to come late? It's no problem. It's like if you were having a knit night at a library and someone had to show up late. It's no big deal. So just come on in whenever you can join us. I usually set it for about an hour and a half. The bigger the group, the more talking there will probably be. And we just share what we're knitting. I talked a little bit about what I'm designing because last time on the podcast, I forgot to put the pictures in. You know, sometimes things just get away from you. So I didn't get the pictures in, so I'm going to show you today some of the things that I'm designing. I still am looking for testers, so that will be good. We had a really nice time. We visited for about an hour and a half, but one of the patterns that I think Barbara showed, which was lovely, interruptions already, Gudrunstromper socks, which are the Gudrunsocks. But if you don't type in Gudrunstromper, all one word on Ravelry, it's hard to find. The designer is Birk Sorenson, and Barbara was telling us all about the heel and how interesting the heel construction was. So then we were all looking it up and looking at it and saying, oh, okay, well, maybe we have to try that. So I thought I would share that. But I did post the knit night in the Patreon group. So it recorded and you can just watch it back. So if you missed knit night, but you wanted to sit and visit with a group of people while you were knitting one evening, it's just one of the things that I try to do is to record the knit nights in the book group. So if you can't make it, that you could watch them back later. I often sign up for Zoom activities and then watch them back later. Like today, I'm missing one. I signed up for the Longmont Yarn Shop discussion on Fair Isle knitting. And that was today at noon. And I knew I wouldn't be able to go, but I can watch it for up to a week afterwards. And if you are not on the Longmont Yarn Shop newsletter, you might want to do that if you've never heard of them. They started a 1-hour talk with different knitting people in the world, knitwear designers, teachers, during COVID, so that teachers would make some money, yarnsters would make some money, and they would have these sessions. And so you can sign up for each time. Now they take July and August off, but it's a $20 fee and you get to listen to some of the greatest people from around the world talk. And the lady who was speaking this morning was, I think, from the Shetland Islands, and she was talking about feral knitting. And I thought that would be so good to watch. So I signed up. And what you do is when you go to the website, you sign up through a yarn store. So there are probably, oh gosh, I should know better about this stuff, 20 different yarn stores that are listed there that get a percentage of the payment that you make to support the yarn store, and then the teacher gets paid, and then Longmont makes a little bit. So it's just a really nice way for them to present people that you may have never seen. And then you get to see the Zoom live where you can ask questions or watch it back later. So I just wanted to share that. I have a new incentive for all my Patreon members. So I am so thankful. Like, this is going so well. I'm paying my bills and I'm not stressed about the finances for my newsletter and my website and my Canva app and all my apps, my MailChimp, all the things, and my Google storage, like to save my videos. Like, everything just cost me, it was just a lot of little amounts, like, $11 a month, $3 a month. And then some of them are like $40 a month. So I am just so thankful that you're here and I want you to stay. So for every 3 months that you stay as a $4 or $10 member, you will receive a coupon code for a free pattern, for one of my free patterns. So I'm going to be doing that here because I've started, this will be my 3rd month that some of you have been Patreons, which is just so awesome. And so I just want to keep providing some incentives for all of you. Just a minute. I thought you were going to take him out on the leash every time. Oh, my husband's so frustrated with our puppy. Our puppy pees on his, well, he's not a puppy, he's a year, but our puppy pees on his front legs when he goes to the bathroom. He doesn't lift his leg always. Unless you take him to an object like a tree or a bush, he doesn't always lift his leg, just in the grass. And so if he squats, he hits his front legs because he's tall. And I know I've talked about this, but now my husband just came back in to tell me, after he already interrupted me the first time, that Chevy peed on his front paws and he had to watch him. And it's not just like a little damp, right? Like, you're not going to let that in your house day after day after day, right? You have to wash it. So we have to, and we have a dog bath in our garage. So my husband, when we first moved in here, put a shower basin in our garage because he's in there all the time, and with a handle. So he can wash things and squirt things off car parts and stuff. So the dog can just step in. We can rinse him off and dry his legs, but it really irritates him. So he came back in to tell me that. So yes, we're going to do incentives. So we're doing book club, and then we're doing knit night. And then if you're a $10 Patreon member for every month, you get every pattern I ever publish from here at Infantum. And I have a number of patterns, because you're going to just get hit with patterns this fall, which is kind of exciting for those of you that are $10 members. So you would actually save some money if you wanted to buy all of my patterns. You would save some money coming up here because you'll be getting those for free. But yeah, thank you so much for being a Patreon. What am I designing? So I finished the Chevy hat and it turned out so cute. So here is the Chevy hat. It has a 4-square top, and it has the chevrons and the little dog tags. So this is the little collar, and this is the little dog tag that's hanging down. Now, if you are not a dog person, then this is just a bauble. But if you are a dog person, then it's a nod to my puppy Chevy, who is named for Chevrolet cars. My husband really likes a good Chevy, and chevrons. And that's how we came to the name Chevy. But I'm also knitting this up in another colorway. So I showed these last week, but I just found out that on the Brooklyn Tweed website, they call these discovery skeins. And I love that, right? They are mini skeins that cost $4. And this is Targhee 100% American Targhee wool, which is amazing, right? The fact that I get to support American wool and it's Targhee, And then these are $4. And so you can choose any of your colorway choices here and get for $4. And then you get a 50-gram skein for your main instead of a 100-gram skein. So it's much less expensive. I had this much yarn left over from knitting this medium-sized hat. So quite a bit, but not enough to make a second hat, unless maybe it was for a baby. And then I had this much left over of the gold, so still a significant portion of the mini skein left over. So I'm really thrilled about that. And the next hat will be in cream, and I ripped that one out because I had to start it over. So I know I had showed some of you, and the colorways are going to be that red and that purple and that orange. So these three color. I'm doing a terrible job today. Okay, there you go. So cream with orange, red, and gold will be the second one. And that will come out with a coupon code if you're a newsletter subscriber. I always do $1 or $2 off my new patterns, but you will get this for free if you're a $10 Patreon member. And so that will come out. That is with Brooklyn Tweed, a collaboration with Brooklyn Tweed. So I'm tickled about that. Then I talked a bit about my Striped Dream sweater. I still want a better name for it. So if you look at these pictures that I'm going to put up here and you can think of a really clever, creative, kitschy, fun name for the sweater rather than Striped Dream, which I'm basing on the thought of Pipe Dream. So it's not terrible, but I'm calling it Striped Dream. But when you name a knitting pattern, you can't name it anything else than anyone else has ever called a knitting pattern on Ravelry before. So you guys can come up with some really cute ideas, but other people may have also thought of them. And the biggest thing that you need as a knitwear designer is when people type the name in, one, that it's easy to spell and remember, and two, that no one else, especially not 16 other people, have named their pattern that, so that yours doesn't come up way down, right? So you have to put words together that will help you to name your item so that when people type it into the search on Ravelry, it pops up to the top. That's the goal, right? So if you guys think of something really clever and creative, let me know. Otherwise, it's going to be Striped Dream because there are several dream stripes out there. And no Striped Dreams. But we're going to be keeping Pipe Dream in our head. Pipe Dream, Striped Dream. That's how I keep remembering. What did you name that again? So this is a top-down yoked sweater, similar in construction to my pretty boxes from last year. It is supposed to be advanced beginner to intermediate friendly. So the color work is just simple, using as many colors as I can. And it is Leading Men Fiber Arts in their DK weight new yarn that they have coming out. I'm really excited about how these are turning out. The yolks are striped, and then there is a little bit of striping underneath, and then there will be some lice in the body, and then color work at the bottom of the sleeves and the bottom and the cuffs and the hem of the sweater. So there'll be two different colorways that I'm knitting right now, the brights and then the neutrals. But I was at a knitting event yesterday, which I'm going to tell you about. And I said, I was showing people and I said, I don't know what to call this. Like, it's like the brights and the not so brights. And then I said, or the Cori colors and the everybody else. So maybe that's what I'm going to call it. Because I love the Cori color ones, but it's really bold. And I'm not sure that it will be a color choice that everyone will pick. But I really like it. So yeah, it's going really well. I had to rip back. I was working on the increases and the yoke, and I put them too close to the band of color, and they kind of blipped in. So like when you do a purl bump and you get those blips, well, if you increase after you've just changed color, sometimes that yarn can ride up into the row below or the row above. And I didn't notice it right away. The other night I was sitting and I don't know why, I just had it in my lap, and that first row looked terrible. I was like, what were you thinking? You need to move it down a row in the pattern. So you knit a row and then do your increase row. And then also I had to rip it all out. So I got a little bit behind now because I wanted to have both of the yokes done and ready to be divided at the underarm for this podcast, and that didn't happen. And I want the pattern to go out this week, and that's not going to happen because I'm leaving on Wednesday to go on a trip up north with my hubs. So, yeah. We are going up to the Bearskin Lodge on the Gunflint Trail, which if you've been a long-time viewer, you know that we've been there before. This is a place that we went when we were first married, before we had children. We went in the summer one year, and then we portaged and canoed and swam and fished, and I read books. I was not a knitter in those early years as much. And then we went in the winter once or twice, and we cross-country skied. I could not do that anymore. The snow was so deep. I remember the snow being so deep. And I was never a great cross-country skier. I was just below average. And yeah, that some of the downhills were downhill, and I struggled. And and with my 2 knees and my hip replaced and my shoulder, all the body parts, that would never happen. But we're going to go back up. So we're going up on Wednesday, and then we're staying through Sunday, and Ross is going to portage and fish, and I am going to knit like the wind. I'm just going to knit and knit and knit because I've got to get the second hat done, both sweaters done, and I've got to start on the other design idea, which is my cascade. They sent me 2 weights of yarn, and I'm going to do a cowl for them. And so yeah, I feel my summers are always really busy when I do a lot of collaborations for fall release, right? So summer shouldn't be a busy time for knitting, but it is if you're going to do fall release stuff. I'm excited to go up north, and friends of ours, Mary Yasvik, who was on the podcast, she and her husband are going to be up there, and they were going home on Wednesday, and he's a big outdoors guy. And Ross said, oh, I wish they were staying. He could portage with me. He's like, we have room in our cabin. Would they want to stay with us for a couple nights? And I was like, oh, I don't know. That's like going on vacation with a couple, right? Like if you've never done that before. And so I just said, hey, Ross would love it if Mike would want to portage with him. And I don't really like Ross to portage by himself. He takes a little fishing boat and pulls his canoe all the way down to the very end of the lake. And then he portages by carrying the canoe on his back with his pole and his bucket and his little lunch or whatever, bait, into a couple of lakes. And so they're very, very remote. He's very remote. We're right on the edge of the Boundary Waters Canoe Area, BWCA in northern Minnesota. And so I made him get a satellite telephone. He's renting it so that when he goes out, if something would happen, he could call and get help. And he was like, yeah, that's a good idea, right? So now Mike and Mary are taking their dog, and the Bearskin won't allow a dog. So then they looked around to find if they could find a place to stay for a couple nights with the dog, and they found somewhere, which is crazy, for the 4th of July, right? So they're going to stay 2 more nights. So the guys will go and portage on Thursday and Friday, and then they will head home, and then we will stay a little longer. So I'm hoping to really be able to, I don't know, once you hit I don't know where the line is, but I will look when we're driving up. There's a point in Minnesota where the terrain changes. And I'm sure that geographically speaking, that there is a name for that, where it just becomes pine tree, and evergreens, and it switches from the plains of southern Minnesota into the forests of northern Minnesota. The air changes, and then once you get up far enough, you're up by the Great Lakes, and you get up through to Duluth and Lake Superior, and the water changes, the weather patterns, and when you get up there, it's just a totally different feeling. And I love Grand Marais, and Grand Marais has a little new little yarn shop that I haven't been to called Dappled Fern, so I want to go into town. I was talking to someone this morning. I'm not sure how far up the Gunflint Trail we are from town. I can't remember. It's maybe like 25 miles or something that we're up the trail. I don't know. But I do want to go into town. And then I've set up an interview for the podcast coming up with Jamie of North Road Knits, who lives just maybe 15 minutes north of Grand Marais in Hovland. And she is a knitwear designer and yarn seller, and she does bulky hats. And so I'm going to meet up with her and I'm going to interview her for the podcast. Well, I'm always doing the hustle, right, guys? Always doing the hustle. Last weekend I was home in Sioux Falls. You'll already have watched that. And I did the interview with Jane at Prairie Road Fibers, and then with my dad, who will be on the next podcast. So I'm just like always trying to fit in, who can I have next on the podcast? Yeah, so we'll be going up north, and that I'll have a 4+ hour car ride both ways. So that's really good knitting time for me. But we are leaving Chevy at home, which is why we're not going for a week, because we just don't want to take him yet. He's not, it's like taking a baby on vacation, right? Like you could do it, but it would make your vacation a lot harder. So he's just not ready to go yet. Someday he will be ready to travel with us, maybe a little bit more, but not right now. Okay. What have I been watching? I have been watching the Tour de France Unchained on Netflix, and that is in season 2. And I started watching that 2 weeks ago. I'm not quite done, but kind of in preparation for the Tour de France to start. And it's, you know, they follow the bike riders throughout the season, and they did like a Netflix documentary. So it's called Unchained. And then the tour started yesterday, so I'm really excited about that. So I'm taping the tour, and then I watch it back. I bought an NBC Peacock pass. A 1-month subscription cost me $11.99, and I can watch the whole tour without ads, which is really nice because the ads are so repetitive. Like they're the same ad over and over again. I started watching Alone, the new season, and I'm so sick of the ads. So I'm really excited. I'm watching Alone. I love that show. It's really graphic in the first episode. So if things like blood bother you, be prepared. But they drop 10 people in the wilderness, and whoever survives the longest wins. And I love watching that. But I just learned that there's the new Alone Australia is out. And I've watched Alone Australia, but not the new one. So now I have that to watch too. So, all the things. I can't wait to sit down at like 8:30 at night. My husband starts getting ready to go to bed because he's up at 5:30 to run with the dog. He's so chipper in the mornings. And I get to sit down and knit, and I just watch TV and knit and watch TV. I have been watching Cole, the corn star. I still watch him every episode. I was really bummed this morning. The Van Wives didn't put up an episode on Sunday morning. I'm like, come on. You only have one thing to do every week. Put up my podcast, and they didn't do it. But then I also watched a documentary called Hack Your Health, The Secrets of Your Gut. And that's on Netflix. And it's about your microbiome in your gut. And that was like was it a 1.5 hour something? It's really interesting. And I have a lot of gut issues. You know, I don't have a gallbladder anymore. And so that was a thing in my life that I really regret. They say that you don't need your gallbladder, and you can survive without it, but I'm not surviving well. I have a really bad gut trouble. And I don't feel like I sometimes get all the nutrients that I'm eating because things go through so quickly. TMI, but it's just really a bummer. And there's a new medication out. So I was just at a doctor's office, and we were talking about that for a different reason. And she said, have you tried this cholesterol or something? And I said, no. And she's like, well, you'd want to be under doctor's care, but it really helps. And I was like, oh, that would be awesome. Because I'm just tired of knowing where, and some of you are the same way, because you've told me this, knowing where every single bathroom is within a mile of anywhere you go. You know where the bathrooms are, right? You drive to the mall, you drive to the Costco, you drive to the get groceries. You know where every single bathroom is. And it's kind of a bummer of a way to live your life. And so I wanted to watch this documentary. So Hack Your Health, it was called. And it was quite good. And some of you will come on and try to help, and that's wonderful because I'm a mom and I always try to help too. But I do the probiotics. I watch what I eat. I don't try to eat greasy foods, right? Like I'm doing all those things. I'm back on my diet plan. I took a little, not a hiatus, but like I took a little time for me to do my maintenance. I gained 4 pounds back, which is fine, right? But I wasn't losing anymore, and I really needed to, I need to lose some more. My knees hurt when I walk too far, and so I'm back on it. I'm really, really gonna try. I felt so good on that plan, the Minnesota Fat Loss plan. I felt so good when I was on it. I slept good, I ate good, my tummy didn't bother me, you know, but it was so pure. I talked about that. You can go back and watch, like, you just didn't eat anything anything. You didn't eat a lot of things, right? So I don't know how sustainable that was long-term, but it did help me to lose the almost 25 pounds. And now I have at least that much to lose again. So I'm back on that, and I want my tummy to be better. I will say that I was in to see an allergist this week because I'm still having my burning tongue. And sometimes I know that this is a knitting podcast and I share other things, but I think it's because it's nice to hear from people sometimes that you're not the only one that has burning tongue, or you're not the only one that has a tummy trouble or doesn't have a gallbladder anymore. They took out my gallbladder because I had C. diff, and my gallbladder was probably sick, but that's not why I was in there. And they're like, well, we'll do your gallbladder. And I was so sick, I didn't care. But that did not cure my C. diff. So I probably could have lived with my gallbladder for a little longer, or I could have done some things to heal my gallbladder now that I'm looking into that more. So I just like to share some of that with some of you. You know, it's part of my life, and I'm a little bit of an overshare, and I talk too much, but you know, it's my personality. I'm not going to change it. So I did go to an allergist this week at the recommendation of my dermatologist and an ENT. I've just been doctoring and no one can fix this. And so they kind of just keep saying, why don't you try the ENT? And he was very helpful, and he did blood work, and one of my blood tests came back positive for Sjogren's. And so now I'm seeing a rheumatologist, but you can't get in, right? I called to get into my gastroenterologist October. That's the next time I can get in, October, to talk to her about this gallbladder medication. And I don't really want to be on medication for everything. I want them to fix the problem. I don't want them to just keep giving me medication to mask it or make the symptoms go away. So with this burning tongue, I kind of want them. So I went off Diet Coke. I didn't have it for a while. No acidic food, no tomatoes, no pineapple, no anything like that. It didn't help at all. Thank God. Oh, I'm sorry, but if the Diet Coke would have cured it, I would have been sad. There would have been no more podcasts. That's terrible. That's a terrible thing to say, but it's true. So I'm saying it. But it didn't help at all. And so now I went and saw an allergist. So I have a little story to tell you about that. I didn't think that was where I needed to be, but I thought, if this is this allergy related? I had that rash from my face for a while, and they thought that might be allergy related, and I could do food testing. And so I did talk to a friend whose husband went through this allergy testing at a site where they test allergens, like chemical processes, like things that are you take in every product you touch in your life, everything, every soap, every lotion, every hair, every toothpaste, you bring it all in. And then they test you for all the chemicals and everything. And like, he had to stop using, and then you wear a back, they prick your back, right? And you wear that for a week. You can't shower. It gets really intense. But they figured out all the stuff he has and why he itches, and now he can, like, it's much better. And they have special things that he can use, and they figured out and so that may be my next step, because I itch all the time still. So I saw this allergist, and I'm standing in the hallway, I'm getting weighed and measured, and my blood pressure done. And I don't know why they do it in the hall, but they did. So I'm standing in the hall with this nurse, and here comes this girl having an allergic reaction. She came down the hall. She was maybe 14. Her mom was like, I think we have a problem. The girl was red, like reddish brown skin from head to toe and swelling. You could see it happening, and it was She looked scared. Her mom looked scared. I looked scared. Like, I was in the hallway. I was in the way. I stepped down. My nurse threw down her file, and they took her in a room right there where I was. And I just backed away, and there was a chair, and I just sat myself on the chair, and I couldn't see, but I could hear. And they were like, okay, sweetie, you're going to be okay. We're going to be putting you a shot in your leg, and you're going to get adrenaline. And it was so scary. So scary. Well, the doctor had been down the hall with someone else in another room. And so she came, and when she came walking by me, she's like, did she eat just one bite? Did she take only one bite? And so it must have been some type of food testing or something that they were doing to see if she was still allergic to something that she had maybe been allergic to as a child. You know, sometimes they say that you can grow out of that. I don't know. It was really scary. My nurse didn't come back for a really long time, and I was like, it's fine. I'm okay over here. Like, I'm just here because my tongue burns, and I don't think you're going to be able to help it. And so another nurse came by, and she's like, why don't you want to just go down to the room? I'm like, yeah, I was in 3. I'll go back and I'll go down to 3. That's where my purse is. You know, I'll just, so yeah, man, so scary. And yeah, she was fine. They got it under control. And then my nurse came in. She's like, I'm so sorry I dropped you so fast. I said, not a problem. I could go home, right? Like, I'm just here as a kind of a last resort. And then the doctor came in and she said, okay, you have a lot of stuff going on. I'm like, I know. I said, I was diagnosed with urticaria or whatever, with sensitive skin, you know, where if they scratch you a little bit, you swell up and yeah. And, you know, I said, but I itch all the time and then my tongue burns. And so she thought maybe it was related. And she's like, we could do food testing and stuff, but let's just talk about this tongue. Like, you know, does it hurt all the time? And she thinks it's now related to the Sjogren's, where my blood test came back high, which is dry mouth and dry eyes. And then she gave me a name, glossitis, where you have a thickening of the layer on your tongue from this, whatever. So now I have to wait to see the rheumatologist, who I'd already had the appointment for at the end of July. So, but then in the meantime, she gave me a mouth rinse to see if it would help. It's a yeast. And then she also gave me a big steroid, and I can decide to take it or not take it. She said it would probably knock it out, but it's not going to tell you what is causing it. And I was like, yeah, that's the problem. I don't want to just keep throwing medicines at this body. So anyway, there you go. That's my Cori story about the allergist and, you know, all that stuff that's going on. Where was I? Rambling. My path is a little curvy today. What was I watching? Oh, the Olympic trials. The gymnastics Olympic trials were in Minneapolis. A year ago, when we heard they were coming, we looked into tickets. In order to be down on the main floor, the tickets were, you know, $2,000. It was super expensive, and I wouldn't have wanted to go alone. So I had said to Ross, well, I would want to go with Kylie. And Kylie's like, you know, I can't afford that. So then I would have to pay for her ticket. And because gymnastics is such a small person sport, like, you want to be close or you're not going to be able to see what's happening, right? Like, I know enough that if you're in a big arena, and if my parents would come to watch me in college gymnastics, we were in Williams Arena at the University of Minnesota, and they'd have to move around the stands in order to be by the equipment if they kind of wanted to see up close what you were doing. Like, if you just wanted to be there for the energy of it and the kind of the seeing Simone Biles, but you're not going to see her height on her floor exercise and stuff unless you're really down on the floor. And so we opted out of going, and I kind of kicked myself. I have mixed feelings. Like, it would have been the perfect opportunity for me to see some of those gymnasts. Back in the day, Kylie, you know, went and saw some gymnasts with me. Carly Patterson, we went and saw, and I just thought I would probably just as well prefer to see it on TV. I wouldn't necessarily have wanted to sit through all the sessions and see the less accomplished gymnasts, shall we say. Those are hard to watch sometimes when they're not quite as good. There's a junior, kind of a junior bracket, and I didn't really want to sit through all the men's stuff. I don't mind watching the men, but I didn't really want to. So anyway, all that to say, I didn't go. I watched it at home. And tonight the women's is on and I'm taping it because we're going to dinner with friends. And so I'll tape it and I'll watch it when I get home. It doesn't start until like 7 or 7:30. So, but we will be home and then I can watch it. And it's just been really fun. I'm so tickled that Suni Lee got to come back and kind of recover from her kidney. You know, she had to quit college gymnastics because she got kidney disease and was very, very sick and was at the Mayo Clinic. And so to see her come back and perform super well, that was really neat. But I felt so bad for the 3 girls who got hurt. In the week leading up, you know, one tore her Achilles, one hurt her knee terribly, only competed in one event Friday night. These kids work their whole lives and they really are kids. Now Simone is older, but the rest of them are kids. And I remember being that age and thinking that gymnastics was life or death. Like gymnastics was it. And if you didn't do well and you didn't compete at the collegiate level or, you know, make it to the Junior Olympics, which when I was little, I thought I was going to be in the Olympics, right? And when you put all your eggs in that basket, that devastation of an injury is so toxic to the rest of your life. Falling off the bars when I was in college, my freshman year, on a gymnastics scholarship and busting up my knee, tearing my meniscus. I couldn't think of the word. Tearing my meniscus, having surgery. And this was many years ago. So that was a much bigger surgery than it should have been, than it would have been today. And then going back into the gym and having a click in my knee, having to go back in and having a second surgery because they missed a piece of cartilage that was in there. And then kind of that washed up the rest of my career. And it washed up a semester or 2 of my college because I was so devastated and I was on crutches so much that I missed some classes and I had to drop a class, and I ended up going to college for an extra year because I was getting a degree in English as secondary education as well as journalism. And it really messed up right? Like having those injuries. So I see those kids and it's like a traumatic response for me. You know, she was just standing, I was just standing on the podium, just crying, and they were giving her a standing ovation. She's on crutches and she's got a big thing. And I'm just like, and she got hurt before the 2020 Olympics and didn't get to go. And she was a top contender, you know, and if that is her life and if that is all she's ever done, right now she can't see that there's any end in sight. She can't see that she could still have a happy, wonderful life, right? It's so, when you're raised in a gym and you're raised to perform, it just breaks my heart. So that was hard to watch. I'm having a bit of a pattern sale starting July 1st, tomorrow. Wow, June is gone, but holiday in July, there are some podcasters that are doing Christmas in July knitting. I have started knitting my little holiday mittens. I finished one and am still at the same point on my second one. So that is not going well for me because I've got to get these things done and I will catch up. But I just thought, it's a perfect time for me to motivate you to cast on some holiday gifts. Maybe you're doing holiday gifts for people and maybe you do that every year, or maybe you say every year, I'm going to do some holiday gifts, or just one. I'm just going to knit a hat for my husband, or I'm going to, make a hat for my grandkids or whatever, socks so I have put together 2 bundles and that will be for the first part of July. And then I'll decide if I'm going to do a second 2 bundles for the second part of July. And I'll talk about that on the next podcast. So if you have not signed up for my newsletter, you need to go to IROCKKNITTERS.com. In the middle of the page, it says newsletter, and you put in your first name and your email, and then you will always get it from me. And so that will go out tomorrow or Tuesday. And that will be a sale for my 3 holiday patterns, the cowl and the 2 shawls that are kind of adventy. So the 12 days of knitting, which was a mystery knit along, which is a beautiful cowl or shawl with just lace sampler stitches, big blocks of lace sampler stitches, so pretty. So if you don't own that pattern, and then my Very Merry Mix Up and my Phases shawl. So there are 2 shawls and kind of that cowl that can be a shawl if you just don't join it in the round. That's one bundle, and you can get that bundle, all 3 of those patterns, for $10. That's an $11 savings. So I will put the code down here. The code is holiday. Is that what I did? Holiday? I think so. And then the second one is to get 5 hats. So I put in my Chim Chimney hat, my Churchill Avenue hat, my Up North cabin hat, my Nice Capades hat, and my Old Fashioned Stocking hat. And even if you already own 1 or 2 of those, you can get all 5 hats for $10. And that's a $25 savings. So that's a big savings on that. So they are bundled on Ravelry. So if you go to my Ravelry designs under my name, Cori Eichelberger, and then you go to my bundles, you can click on them. And then you just add 1, 2, 3 to your cart, check out, then add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to your cart, check out, use the coupon code, do 2 separate transactions so you get the big discount on both things. So check out for the cowl and the 2 shawls. You have to buy all 3. I'm not doing them individually. It's too much work. You have to buy all 5 hats. And then you put them all in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you put in holiday hats, and it will automatically take it off. So that will come out in my newsletter early this week. I did the newsletter early this morning, and so I just wanted to tell you all about that, my Patreons, so that you know that that's out there. And then if there's a few patterns that you want of mine, why don't you comment in the show notes what patterns you might knit as gifts for Christmas? Because I have 21 hat patterns. It's really hard to choose. Like, what would people want? And then I have a ton of sock patterns. So if there are, like, let's say you want 3 sock patterns or 3 hat patterns or something or whatever, comment down below what they are, and then maybe that is what I can make for a bundle for middle of July, because I want the sales to go for the whole month of July so that it's Christmas in July, but I want to be inclusive. So holidays in July, right? Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever. Pattern sale. It doesn't have to be a holiday in July. I'm just having a pattern sale. So yeah, we'll do that. I did go home to Sioux Falls. There was so much flooding. My parents got 8.6 inches of rain in several days. They did have water in the basement. It was not good. They have had water in their basement before. They live in a 1960 ranch home with a full basement that is mostly finished. And years ago, they had the entire house dug out around. They put in drainage tile, 2 sump pumps. So they do well now. But this is century flood, right? This is a flood that we haven't had in forever. Ramps were closed, exits were closed. The Sioux River was a raging torrent. If you've never been to Sioux Falls, don't know where Sioux Falls is. Sioux Falls is named for falls, right? But they're beautiful falls, and they're small. They're like pink granite stones with water that runs over them. And it's not a big drop off. It's just real pretty. Now it's a raging torrent. You can go out and just Google. It is incredible, some of the pictures. If I have time, I'll stick some in. I took some pictures. We drove on Friday. I was going to interview Jane of Prairie Road, who you will already have seen. And we put it in Waze to leave town because Ross said, I wonder if the highways are closed. And yes, it took us a different route. We went through 2 towns on our way through southern Minnesota, which is very rural, that smelled so bad because the sewers had backed up from all the water. And we saw farms underwater that smelled so bad because of all of the manure. It was really devastating, really sad. So my parents did get some water, not not a ton. It did not like flood the basement by 3 inches, but it was coming along one wall. And so my dad was using the shop vac, sitting on a chair, using the shop vac up against the wall. And we had towels and you know, carrying wet towels up and down the stairs for those two. No. We were all frustrated because Ross and I had to sleep in the basement. It was really wet down there. That's where the bedrooms are, the 2 bedrooms are. And, you know, so it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. Yeah. Anyway, we got it cleaned up, and then they tore the carpet back in the 1 bedroom and tore the pad up, and they'll get that dried out, and then they'll have to have someone come in and look to see if the walls got, you know, wet, and if they'll have to spray some kills or remediate the walls by cutting them up high or not. You know, you can't have your basement disintegrate underneath you. And I said to my brother, I said, they'll have a mushroom farm. You know, a mom's got asthma. They cannot get mold here. And tons of roads closed. Coming home, we had to go all the way. If you're not familiar, but we had to go all the way across I-90 and not turn up until Fairmont because the map was just red dots where everything there's so much water in Minnesota because we're the land of 10,000 lakes. And there are rivers and creeks and streams that feed in and out of all those lakes. And you got to cross the Minnesota or the Mississippi, you know, somewhere. And so, yeah, we had to take a weird route home, too. I mean, I've been doing that drive for 50 some years. So, yeah, it was just not good, really. So, say a little prayer for no more rain in Sioux Falls. Yesterday, I went to the Bee Woolen Lock-In. That is one of the local yarn stores here. They have lock-ins almost every weekend. That's just what they've termed them. That just means that you come in the front door and you don't leave until you're ready to go home. But sometimes they have a lock-in Friday night and Saturday. You don't spend the night, you go home and you come back, but they just call them a lock-in. And so I went to a lock-in and I went with a couple of friends. It was really fun. There were probably 30, some of us. We got a free skein of yarn and a little notebook as our goodie bag. They served lunch. We had pulled pork sandwiches and coleslaw and orzo salad. They do just a great event. If you are coming to the Twin Cities to visit, always look up on their website ahead of time whether or not they're having a lock-in. A lot of times they'll have a teacher or a yarn company presenting or doing a trunk show, or there's always a theme of some kind of what they're doing the lock-in for, and basically just knit. And then about halfway through, they go around the room and people can show and share everything they've knit or something they finished recently. So that's really inspiring to see. So that was, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I did buy some yarn. Last week on their Instagram feed, I saw this guy, I'll put a picture in, hold up this shawl. The colors were so great. And so I texted and I said, what shawl is that? And they said, he just made it up. And I was like, oh, bummer. So then when I went to this lock-in, I was going to ask her about it. And I said, you know, what yarn did he use? We're not really sure. And they said, Cori, you should write it up as a pattern. Everybody has called and commented about this shawl. And I was like, well, I could totally do it as a pattern. It's just garter with yarn over knit 2 together. So it really is not, it could be really a recipe. I said, but I can totally do that. But I can't take someone else's idea. Like, I'm not stealing his idea and making a shawl out of it. But if you want to ask him and he's okay with me writing it up, or if he wants to tell me how he did it and I will print it out and then we can donate the money somewhere, like, I'm happy to do that. But I'm not going to print out his, like, I can make it myself for myself. So I purchased the yarn from her. Then after we had this big conversation, she reached out to them and asked and we didn't hear back, but then I was like, well, okay, I want to have those colors of yarn that he used. And so I did get that. But we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. I'm certainly not going to steal someone's idea and take it as my own or make money on it. So I said, but I'd happy to put it up on Ravelry for a few dollars or whatever. See if that happens. So I did buy 6 skeins of Malbrigo in the colors that he used, which was like, I'll take a picture. They're in a bag by the back door. Orange, black, you know, kind of a maroon, purple, gold, green. It was kind of a rainbow, but it was a moody jewel tone rainbow, as we say, for my daughter's wedding. moody jewel tones. Okay, what have I been reading? We'll wrap this up here. I read Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. That is the implied story of William Shakespeare and what may have happened during the plague. I thought it was pretty good. I didn't love it as like, oh, best book of the year, but yeah, I have wanted to read it for a long time. Hamnet and Hamlet are similar in naming, and so it was well written, probably very well researched, as far as like his wife and his son, and then they have twins, and it's during the plague. It's really just a story of their family, and then he goes off to London to live and leaves her back at home to take care of the children. And he was always an unhappy man, always a very sad, melancholy. The word is used many times. And he just leaves her. He doesn't come back very much. And then he goes and has his fame and fortune kind of in the theater. Then I read Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe. Oh, it's so good, you guys. It's so good. It's by Heather Weber. I absolutely loved it. Woman goes back to her town because her aunt has passed away and leaves her this cafe. She has to run it for 60 days before she can sell it and leave the town. And she's going to go to medical school in the fall. She has all these other plans. It was just wonderful. Lovely story. Really good. But one of the quotes of the book was very heartfelt. And so I copied it down. And my mom is struggling a bit with the death of her sister and feeling really sad about that. And my mom was older than her younger sister who passed away. My mom's feeling some guilt about that and just sad. And this quote really resonated with me, and maybe it was because of that conversation I had with my mom. But it says, "The bonds of love are only strengthened when someone leaves this earth, not diminished. Some have trouble understanding that you can literally love someone more after they die, right? Because the grief is so heavy, and that you loved them when they were here, but the missing of them causes that love to just be so painful, right? I thought that was so good. The bonds of love are only strengthened when someone leaves this earth, not diminished. Oh, I just thought that was really good. So I wanted to share that with all of you. Highly recommend Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe. She has a bunch of books out. I put a ton on hold now. Then I read Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. I read her book Foster a while back and shared that with you. This is a really short book. I have a bunch of really short ones this week. This is an hour. This is a 2-hour audiobook. During the weeks leading up to Christmas, Bill Furlong, a coal merchant and family man, faces his busiest season. Early one morning, while delivering an order to the local convent, Bill makes a discovery which forces him to confront both his past and the complicit silence of a town controlled by the church. So they send these young girls that get pregnant to the convent, and they are mistreated by the nuns and the priest, and he finds out, and everyone in the town has kind of known, and no one has done anything about it. And it's just a really, we really would call it a short story. So poignant, so wonderful, as he struggles to, if he turns them in, the church is so powerful, his business could go under, and he has 5 children. If he doesn't turn them in, his moral, it was really good. Really highly recommend reading that one. Small Things Like These. Then I read Darkness Visible by William Styron. He wrote Sophie's Choice, and this is a book that he wrote because he started to struggle with depression and anxiety, serious depression. He was kind of an alcoholic, which he admits to, and he had a terrible time with sleep, and so he got addicted to a sleep medication. But he just wrote this. How long is it? It's also a 2-hour telling of his struggle, a work of great personal courage. It's his true account of his experience of crippling depression. If you have someone in your life who is depressed, who has been through depression, has been hospitalized for depression or anxiety, has had psychotic episodes, if you yourself are depressant, as am I, this is a fascinating take on how hard it is to get help and how hard it is to fight and battle, to reach out to a new doctor, to start a new medication, to have to go off the medication because it's not working, wait until it clears your system, get a new medication, and wait the 2 weeks until it gets into your system. In the meantime, you're literally dying on the vine. It just talks with such honesty about the system and how hard it is and how many people commit suicide and why they would commit suicide. It was really eye-opening to me, and I've done a lot of work in this area, a lot. And it's just 2 hours of your time. I would not say it was depressing. I would say it really is more like eye-opening. You know, it's very autobiographical, but yet it's presenting a lot of information in a way that makes you go, yes, yes, like you're in it. And so I don't think it would make you feel more down by reading it. That's all I'm concerned about, is that someone might, you know, feel more down after, but I don't think so. It was really powerful. Then I read Passing, and that's by Nella Larson, and that is coming out, or is out, as a new Netflix movie. And I have not watched it yet, but I'm so glad I read the book first, right? This is a 4-hour audiobook, and this is about an African-American woman who lives her life as white and runs into an old friend, and the person knows that she's passing. That's what it's called. And then what happens? Will they solve a relationship? Will she tell on her? Will people in her life find out? Her husband doesn't know that she's Black. It was really well done and has a incredible ending. Cannot say enough about the ending. So we'll definitely be watching it on Netflix, and then I'll probably talk about it again, but it's called Passing, and another really powerful one. So those 3 little books that I got, I just decided to do them really quickly because I can do a 10 or 12-hour book, and I thought, oh, these are all due in, I get them for 21 days, and I thought I'll just do them all, kind of rapid fire, and they were all 3 really powerful, which just makes you kind of like, oh, so much going on. And then I started another new one already, so I haven't been listening as much as I once was, where it was crazy, just having I'm not walking as much outside. It was some, but and I haven't been in the car as much. I don't know. So just haven't listened to quite as much. So I got a lot of books done, but they were itty bitty. And then let's not forget about the Cowl. We are having a knit along for all of the Shetland wool wee cats. I talked about it last week, and I posted on Instagram. Sorry, I'm squirming here. I posted on Instagram some places that you can buy kits. And so if you aren't on Instagram or you don't follow me, I thought I should share those here. So several people got in touch. So thank you so much for telling me that there are kits out there to be purchased that are discounted, which is really nice. So Fairlight Fibers in St. Louis, Missouri has really good prices on some of the older kits. So go over there and check that out. Heritage Spinning and Weaving in Lake Orion. I've been there. Orion. I can't remember. Michigan, Heritage. They have Jimmy Bean's Wool, Jameson and Smith, Jameson's of Shetland, and then Stranded by the Sea in Edmonds, Washington has kits. You can Google Shetland Wool Week kits, and some will maybe pop up in your area, but if you are trying to get them at a kind of a discount, there were a couple places that had them for less expensive than at Jimmy Bean's. If you are looking for the newer ones that have the, the more popular colors, they are going to cost you a little bit more. But there's no saying that you can't just use scraps and absolutely just knit up the hats on your own. So a couple of you were casting on during our knit night. We are having our next knit night in July. It is on a Thursday night, July 25th from 7 to 8:30. So I've done a Wednesday, I did a Tuesday, now I'm doing Thursday. Or a Friday, I did a Friday first. So I'm trying to move it. So like if you always are not available on a certain night of the week, that you could maybe make it. So Thursday, July 25th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time will be our 1.5 hour Zoom knit night. So if you want to come and cast on your Shetland Wool Week hat or pick a Shetland Wool Week hat, someone asked me, is it good for beginner color work? And I would say absolutely. The bobble hat is could be beginner color work. The repeats are easier. The other Shetland Wool Week hats, they are not difficult. Charts are not difficult, but you are changing yarn a lot to kind of get that Fair Isle effect. So you're changing colors a lot in the rows, and so that can be harder to follow, right? But other than that, I would say that the easiest one is probably that bobble hat. I have not cast on one of my 3 kits yet. I have not knit my second mitten. I have a lot of knitting to do. I could just not sleep and still not get it all done, I don't think, but it is what it is. I do have a couple of things that I saw on the internet that I want to share. The first one is that there's a new show coming out this September. If you go over to Instagram and follow @GregoryStitch, it is called Stitch Factor, and it is kind of like the British baking or sewing thing. Or what was the one that Stephen B did, where they got together some knitting and crochet people and they said, we're going to have a contest and you're going to get some prompts and then you have to make something. So that's coming out. It's called Stitch Factor Official, and coming out in September. So I thought I would share that with all of you, but Gregory Stitch is the one who is kind of heading that up. You probably could Google him or Stitch Factor and see if there's information, like if they have a website up. They were calling for participants a while back. And so I would assume that that has all been done already, but I don't know. I really don't know that much about it. I needed to go draw for the giveaway, and so I had to go get that done quick. Last week's episode was 150. Thank you all so much for the congratulations. I'm giving away the buttons, the bag, and the mini skeins, and that person that commented the number 150, there were quite a few comments, goes to Carol Foster, and it was on YouTube. So the name is Carol Foster 5614. So Carol, you won all of this wonderful little 150th podcast episode giveaway. So please get in touch with your address and I will get that out to you. This week's giveaway, I have a whole box in the closet of things that people have donated or that I'm giving away. But in this little bag is our 2 little mouse figurines. And they're older than the hills. They're kind of chipped up in the back. I don't know what they are from, but there's a little lady knitting and a little old man reading the newspaper. So she's knitting. It's really cute. And going with that is going to be this beautiful skein of Dream yarn, the purple and green sweater, striped sweater that I wore on the last podcast or 2, I can't remember. This was an extra skein, and so I thought, oh, okay, I will give that away with this. So this is Dream, the color is Bitter 702, and I just love this colorway. So this week, please comment on the podcast Dream and tell me about a dream you have had, a dream that you want to do something, like I have a dream to someday go to Japan or whatever it is. I have a friend that just got back from Japan, so that's probably why that popped into my head. I don't know if Anne watches, but hi, Anne. She's a newer knitter in my knitting group, and they went to Japan for 17 days. Oh, and she said the trip was just incredible. So, but if you have a dream, or if you always have a constant dream, like I used to have a dream that I would wake up and I was going to be late for something. So, just tell me about a dream that you've had, because the yarn is named Dream, and then I'm going to wrap these up so that they don't get broken. Okay, so that is the giveaway. We went out to dinner with friends on Friday night. This is a couple that we see quite often. He is going through a cancer journey, and we try to see them and keep his spirits up. And we really like them a lot. And he has been at home off of work. And so he's been going through some old files and kind of cleaning things out and whatever. And so, wouldn't you know, to this dinner that we had, he came in and he said, you know when you should clean out your files when you find things like this? So look at what he brought. It is our wedding ceremony and our first Christmas picture from our wedding. I mean, come on. So my colors were red, and there's a rose on the front, and there's a little poem that I think I wrote about love, and then it's the marriage of Greenland Schmidt, and then it has like people and the songs I had. So the prelude was the song Turn Around, Turn Around. Turn around and you're a young girl walking out of the door. Turn around. Some of you will know that song. I'm not a singer. And then there was the lighting of the candles to the wedding song. And then I had a trumpet play me in, which is really funny now, but I wanted that. And so they did trumpet voluntary in D, and it's really pretty. It's like Joy, that song. I think I've talked about that before on the podcast many years ago, but it was the song Joy. If I can put a snippet in, I usually can't if it's not in public domain, but, and then my floor exercise music in college was Through the Eyes of Love from the musical Ice Castles. I mashed together a bunch of songs from that. It was right at the beginning of when we could start using music that wasn't instrumental. We could use orchestral, and so I put together a bunch of Ice Castles music. So one of the songs was Through the Eyes of Love. This was so close to my heart. And then the song One Hand, One Heart from West Side Story. And so, and then the recessional was Hornpipe from Water Music, and I don't even know what that was. So I gotta go listen to that. But he was a usher at our wedding. He was one of Ross's dear friends, still friends after all these years. We did have the lyrics of Through the Eyes of Love on the back. Please don't let this feeling end. It's everything I am and everything I want to be. Oh, such good memories. It was just so funny that he walked in with, that's our cutting the cake picture. Look at us. We're so young. We are so young. Oh my gosh. And we have had a picture Christmas card every year since. So that will close out the podcast this week. Bye. Love you all. One more little last story here. I am teaching little boy to knit, and his name is Evan, and he's darling. And he's 7 years old, and he loves everything having to do with knitting. So this week he came to my house. This is his third lesson. He can do the long tail cast on and knit and purl, and he has cast on a hat, and he has made a bracelet. And I wanted to do something different. So I was talking to him about skeins of yarn, because he and his dad are going to go to the yarn store. And I told him, you're going to walk in and your eyes are going to get this big, Evan. Because there's so much yarn and fancy yarn, and so I was showing him what a skein was and how you would have to wind it up in order to use it, because it comes like this, and what a cake looks like, and then this is why it's called a cake. And then we went into my office, and I have an electric ball winder with the big Swift, right? He was just like, how long is it going to take? And yeah, he was just fascinated. Of course, I put a fingering weight skein on. That was stupid. So it took a little longer, so I had to crank up the speed, but then I let him pull it off, and so he thought that was really neat. And then he wanted to know how much that cost, and I said it was very expensive, but that they had smaller ones for younger people and that they weren't as much. Then we looked on the internet and we looked at those, and then I was showing him Susan B. Anderson's Kids Knitting Workshop last week, and I let him take my book home. And even though he can't read a knitting pattern yet, like he's going to be in first grade, I think he's going to be in first grade. He's tiny. He's a tiny little kid, and so I think he may have not gone to kindergarten. I don't know. And his ability to look at something and figure it out, it is just fascinating to me. But because I had showed him that book, I'm trying to make this shorter, I got out my 2 Susan B. Anderson Topsy-Turvy Inside Out knit toys and itty bitty toys, because I thought, oh, he'll think that's neat. And this giraffe is on the cover. And so then I was like, I made that giraffe. And I said, but it's not itty bitty, Evan. It is not itty bitty. It's big. And he said, do you have a picture of the giraffe? And I said, Evan, I have the giraffe upstairs. So I went upstairs to Kylie's room and I got out her giraffe, and he was like, he's like, that is not small. He said, I said, no, it's not small. And so then I was showing him this, and he said, did you make those pom-poms with the pom-pom maker or not? He's so like interested. How did you make those circles? How did you get those on there, you know? And he's real quiet and soft-spoken. I'm making him sound like he's extroverted. He's not. He's very quiet. But I said, well, you cast on a couple stitches and then we make it wider, and, you know, and then you sew them on, and, you know, and then he was like, are there other, you know, toys? So then I said, yes, I brought down all the toys. So I thought, they're right here. I'm going to show them all. I've shown these before, but we have Noodle, and he was like, how does that yarn? That is not how you get yarn normally. And see, he has only seen really solid colored yarn, not like variegated yarn. So then he wanted to know why this was like this, why I had yarn that would look like that. So then I got out variegated skeins and showed him that some of the skeins are like that. And then we talked about, you know, safety eyes and how we wouldn't want someone to be able to pull them off, and how do you put those in? He wanted to know. And so we got out Noodle, and then we got out Jinx, which is the little holiday Halloween one. And then we talked about, so then you had to have 2 colors for this one. You had to have the green and the other one. I was like, yep, you have to have the green color and this color. How did you make that smile? I said, well, I just took some black yarn and I stitched it on. He's just so interested in like the mechanics of how it all goes. And then I showed him Turtle. Oh, you know, so we talked about that these were put on like the circles on the giraffe. And then I showed him the top, and I told him that this is how we're going to make the top of his hat that he's working on, that we're going to make it smaller and smaller. How are we going to do that? And I said, well, you're not ready for that. I'm not going to teach you that until next time, because you have to knit your 5 inches first, because he's doing his ribbing. He did 3 rows of ribbing. Now he has to do 3 more. And then he has to knit 5 inches plain. And I said, and then we'll get up here, but we're going to knit 2 stitches together. Can I see how to do it? I said, okay. So I showed him how to knit 2 stitches together. And I said, that's all there is to it. And then that will make that little line right here, will make your thing, you know, smaller. And so that was kind of cute. And he wanted to know why this little tail was hanging out right here. And I'm like, well, because my daughter played with it. And she's a big girl now, but she used to play with it. So it's not in the best of shape. And then we also had Sir Cephalopod, and he did not understand what this was. And he was like, how did you get that button? And I said, well, it's a wood mustache, and I just sewed it on. And then, see, he has a monocle here, and so he didn't necessarily know what a monocle was, and he didn't know why that was wrapped around there. And I said, well, his hat's too small for his head, and that's just the band of his hat. But he wants to know like the why to everything, and he's just, and then his dad sits on my porch and works on his computer, because they come just like over his kind of his dad's lunch hour, I assume, or something. I'm not really sure how their family dynamic works, but so he's always working, and then his dad gets up at, you know, and then Evan doesn't ever want to go home. He always wants to stay longer. So last week his dad stood there for, I don't know, pack up your stuff, Evan. 15 minutes and tried to, you know, so Evan went and showed his dad the giraffe, the itty bitty giraffe, and said, it's supposed to be small, Dad. But then these were all sitting out, and I thought, you know, They were in Kylie's drawer upstairs. We're trying to keep them from getting dusty or anything because her bedroom upstairs is pretty cleaned out, but so I put them in the drawer up there so that someday if she wants to take them with her, then she can take them. But I thought, oh, I should show the itty bitty. So if you have never seen Susan B. Anderson's books, Itty Bitty Toys, or the Inside Out one, that's kind of cool too. I haven't made an Inside Out toy, and I really should. This came out in 2009, Itty Bitty Toys. So that one's been out there for a while, and all the animals you can make. There's a pig and a dog and a princess and a snake and some fruit and sock yarn toys that she does out of sock yarn. There's a bear and there are puppets. There are, you know, a zebra and a panda. These are wonderful books, really nice. And then this one are the ones that you turn inside out and they become something else. So you make an egg, and then if you pop it inside out, it turns into an alligator. And then the dog house turns into a dog. So you knit one half, and then the other half would be, you know, over here, and then you tuck it up inside it. I've not made these yet. This one came out later. Oh, this one's signed. This one was signed in 2014. I think the easiest one to make is the little princess, the chrysalis with the butterfly, where the chrysalis turns into a butterfly. So it's just like a little green ball that then when it opens up, it's a leaf with a butterfly on it. So that one would be pretty easy, I think. Or the little princess girl where her dress folds down. Let me show you that one. So here's the tulip, and when you roll it down, then it becomes her dress that hangs down. And so she just gets hidden. So that one I think would be not as hard either to do. But so these were sitting on my table, but the last one I showed him was this animal hats and the frog with the big eyes. These are giant hats. They would drown him. But there's a penguin and an elephant. Oh, the elephant has a giant trunk. So if you haven't seen the elephant, it has a giant trunk on the front of it. And then there's a cow and a panda and a koala. We didn't know what this one was. We couldn't tell. And so we had to look it up in the book. And I said, I don't know what that is. And then once you know what it is, it's kind of obvious that it's a koala with the flat nose and the, you know, the little pom-poms for the ears. And there's a cat and the bunny rabbit and a mouse and the lion. The lion one is incredible. Like, yeah. So this is Animal Hats by Vanessa Muncy. 15 patterns to knit and show off. So I showed him that one too. Not that he's ready to knit these, but I think it's neat for him to know that you can make things that you can knit just about anything. So that was kind of fun. Okay, I think that's all I have. I'm going to start editing. I have a lot of editing to do between today and tomorrow to get this uploaded. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Come in for a hug. If you're a Patreon member, just know. Thank you. Bye.